Okay, welcome. Today we're going to go through how to add, to begin a new intervention with a student. So to do this, we log into our account, just as always. And once we log in, we go to the link called Begin Intervention. So first thing I have to do is I have to select what kind of an intervention I'm going to be doing. Literacy lessons, this is if you are a special ed or ESL teacher that is beginning a literacy lessons intervention. Other individual intervention, this may be if you are in some other role. You could be a classroom teacher or another kind of literacy specialist who's beginning individual intervention that's using the CIMME approach. Another small group or other small group, which is a non-CIMME approach intervention. So this would be in cases, for example, in Rockland, you folks that are in other schools. These are the interventions that you would use, other individual and other small group. Reading recovery. Reading recovery teachers are the only ones that should be able to begin a reading recovery intervention. And again, you'll only see the list of interventions that is appropriate to your role in the school. So if you're performing an intervention that doesn't appear here on your list, make sure that you contact us. It probably means that your role needs to be updated to add an additional role to your school. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin, I'm actually going to begin a literacy lessons intervention. I'm going to click Next. And now I can select a student that could receive a literacy lessons intervention. And notice that all of my students are listed because literacy lessons can happen with kids at all different grade ranges. If I were to go back and select a new intervention and I were to say reading recovery instead and click Next, now notice that only my grade 1 students are eligible to be in reading recovery. So it's important that you make sure you select your intervention carefully. So here we go. I'm going to go back to Begin Intervention, back to Literacy Lessons, and click Next again. And here I have my whole list. The new student that I just added in the previous session, Gina, I'm going to select her. Now I could select multiple students, but I'm going to just go ahead and select one at a time for now. So Begin Intervention. It's going to ask me what my first roaming lesson was, or my first roaming and then my first lesson. And you may or may not use this precise terminology in some of your interventions, but so if you began your first lesson on the first day that you began with the student, you can enter the same date. If you began using a more traditional reading recovery approach where you did roaming around the known for a period of time and then began your first official lesson, then you would put the first roaming would be the first time you met with the student, and first lesson was the first regular lesson that you provided. So I'm going to go ahead and say that on 09/07/2011 was my first roaming lesson, and that my first lesson happened a week after that. The next thing that I need to make sure that I select is reading performance, and by default it's set at well above average. This is actually something we're going to try to correct, but we need to select what their grouping is versus their peers. So because she's receiving literacy lessons intervention, she is below average for her peers. And then we click the Begin Intervention button. Now I can see I have my literacy lesson students. Notice that I also have James Smith that's in literacy lessons, and then here's my new student Gina. Now in order to enter weekly data, I would select Gina and I would select the enter weekly data option. I'm not going to do that because that's in a different training video. So in order to begin a new intervention, let's just recap. We go to Begin Intervention. We select the intervention that we want. We select the student that is going to receive that intervention. And then we say Begin Intervention. So very straightforward. In the new system, you can have students that are receiving multiple interventions simultaneously. And they can have multiple interventions delivered by multiple teachers all at the same time. So if you want to look at how to add that weekly data, that's in the next training video, and so I'll talk to you again there.